A voice coming from the forbidden forest. No one who enters ever returns, but tonight, Kael farmer's son answered. In the whispering woods, shadows have secrets, trees have memories, and the darkness knows your name. This is where legends are born, or buried to let's dive in to enter the shadowed kingdom. The lantern swung gently in Kael's calloused hand, casting dancing shadows across the dirt path that led home. Above him, the last streaks of amber sunlight bled through purple clouds, surrendering to the encroaching night. His boots scuffed against the dry earth with each weary step, his shoulders aching from another day in the fields. 17 harvests he had seen, 17 summers of the same routine. Wake before dawn, work until dusk, collapse into dreamless sleep. His father said it was honest work. His mother said it built character. Kael thought it was simply all there was. The village of Thornhaven lay nestled in a valley between two gentle hills, its thatched roofs and smoking chimneys a welcome sight after the long day. 60 families called it home, maybe 70 if you counted the miller's new twins. Everyone knew everyone. Everyone did what was expected. Farmers farmed, blacksmiths forged, and the baker's daughter would marry the cooper's son come spring, just as their parents had arranged. The wheel turned, the seasons changed, and life in Thornhaven continued as it always had, unremarkable and safe. But safety had boundaries. To the east, those boundaries were marked by the whispering woods. Kael had been told the stories since before he could walk. The woods were forbidden, cursed, older than the kingdom itself. The trees there grew twisted and wrong, their branches reaching like grasping fingers toward any who came too close. Strange lights flickered between the trunks on moonless nights. Sounds emerged that mimicked human voices, luring travelers from the safety of the road. Old Garrison swore his brother had entered the woods 30 years ago on a dare and was never seen again. The village elder claimed the forest was a wound in the world, a place where the barrier between realms grew thin. Stay away from the whispering woods. That was the first rule every child learned. The second was never to answer if you heard your name called from within. Kael had never been tempted to break either rule. He had walked past the forest's edge 1,000 times on his way to the southern fields, had glimpsed the unnaturally dark shadows beneath its canopy, had heard the wind moving through its branches in ways that sounded almost like speech. But he had never been curious enough to investigate. Fear was a powerful teacher, and the woods radiated wrongness in a way that made his skin crawl even from a distance. Tonight was no different, except it was. The first whisper came as he passed the old stone marker that indicated the forest's boundary, 300 paces from the road. His name, soft as silk, barely louder than the evening breeze. Kael! He stopped, his hand tightening on the lantern's handle. The path stretched empty in both directions. No one else had worked the southern fields today. He was alone. The rational part of his mind said it was nothing. Wind through leaves, his imagination fueled by exhaustion and the dying light. He started walking again, faster now, eager to reach the warmth of home and his mother's stew. Kael, clearer this time. Definitely his name. Definitely coming from the woods. His heart began to hammer against his ribs. Don't answer. Don't look. Keep walking. The rules existed for a reason. People who ignored them didn't tend to live long enough to regret it. But there was something about the voice, a quality he couldn't name, a strange familiarity that made no sense. It wasn't threatening. It didn't sound like a predator luring prey. It sounded almost sad, lonely, as if whoever called had been waiting a very long time. Kael made it another 50 paces before curiosity won over caution. He turned, just enough to glance back at the forest's edge. Mist was rising from the ground between the trees, luminescent in the twilight, moving with deliberate purpose rather than the random drift of normal fog. It pooled and swirled, and within its depths, something glowed with a soft, silvery light. Not the harsh brightness of fire, but something gentler, like moonlight given form. Kael, please. I've been calling for so long. The voice was clearer now, and he realized with a start that it was feminine. Young, perhaps close to his own age, though there was an ancient quality beneath the youthful tone, like a river running over stones worn smooth by countless years. This is insane, he muttered to himself, yet his feet had already left the path, carrying him toward the tree line as if pulled by invisible strings. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. The village stories weren't just tales told to frighten children. They were warnings earned through genuine tragedy. The whispering woods had claimed lives. The old graves in the cemetery behind the chapel bore witness to that truth. But the voice called again, and this time it spoke words that froze the blood in his veins. Kael Thorne's son, child of two worlds, bearer of the mark you've hidden all your life. If you want to know why you've never belonged, why you've always felt the pull of something greater, why your dreams are filled with shadows and silver light, come to me. I have the answers you seek. His left hand moved unconsciously to his right shoulder, pressing against the fabric of his shirt, feeling the raised skin beneath. The birthmark. He'd been born with it. A strange symbol that looked like a crescent moon pierced by a vertical line. His mother said it was a blessing. His father never spoke of it at all. Kael had learned to keep it covered, had felt shame when other children pointed and whispered during the rare times they'd seen it while swimming in the creek. No one outside his family knew about it. No one. The mist beckoned, tendrils reaching toward him like welcoming arms. He thought of his father's weathered face, disappointment already carved into every line from years of a son who never quite measured up to expectation. He thought of his mother's worried eyes, always watching him as if she feared he might vanish at any moment. He thought of Thornhaven, where his entire future was already written. Marry Alara, or perhaps the tanner's daughter, inherit the southern fields, raise children who would inherit in turn, die without ever knowing what lay beyond the valley's hills. A life of safety, a life of sameness, a life that felt like a cage he hadn't known he was in until this very moment. Kael stepped off the road and into the grass that bordered the forest. The temperature dropped immediately, despite the summer warmth that still radiated from the earth. The lantern's flame guttered and nearly died before rallying, its light suddenly seeming fragile and insufficient. The boundary between the mundane world and the whispering woods was marked by nothing more than the first line of trees, yet crossing it felt like pushing through a curtain of cold water. The sounds of the normal world, crickets chirping, wind in the grass, distant cattle lowing, cut off as if severed by a blade. The silence that replaced them was absolute and suffocating. Then the whispers began in earnest. Not just one voice now, but dozens, perhaps hundreds. They came from every direction, some distant and faint, others so close that Kael felt phantom breath on his neck. They spoke in languages he didn't know, in words that twisted and changed even as he tried to comprehend them. But beneath the chaos, that original voice, her voice, rose clear and true. Straight ahead. Don't stray from the path you feel beneath your feet. Don't listen to the others. They're just echoes, memories of those who came before. Follow only me. This is madness, Kael said aloud, his voice swallowed immediately by the pressing silence. I should turn back. But you won't, the voice replied, and he could hear the smile in it. You've been waiting for this your whole life, even if you didn't know it. You've been sleeping, Kael. It's time to wake up. The mist flowed around his legs now, cool and strange, leaving no dampness on his clothes. The trees on either side were massive, their trunks wider than his father's house, their bark black and rough with patterns that almost resembled faces frozen in various expressions of agony or ecstasy. It was impossible to tell which. Their branches overhead wove together into a canopy so dense that no trace of sky remained visible. The only light came from his lantern and the faint, silvery glow of the mist itself. He walked for what felt like hours but might have been minutes. Time moved strangely here, elastic and unreliable. Occasionally, he caught glimpses of things in his peripheral vision, pale figures standing between distant trees, watching, glowing eyes that blinked and vanished, shapes that weren't quite animal and weren't quite human, moving through the underbrush with liquid grace. None approached him. It was as if the voice had claimed him, marked him as off-limits to whatever else dwelt in these cursed woods. The path, though no actual trail existed, led downward into a natural depression in the forest floor. The trees grew even larger here, true ancients that must have been old when the kingdom was young. Their roots erupted from the earth in massive coils, creating arches and tunnels large enough to walk through. The mist pooled thicker here, reaching Kael's waist, moving in slow currents around the roots. At the center of the depression stood a ruin. Stone pillars rose from the forest floor in a perfect circle, 12 in all, each carved with symbols that hurt Kael's eyes when he tried to focus on them directly. They surrounded a circular platform of seamless black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The pillars leaned at various angles, some cracked, others wrapped in the grasping roots of the ancient trees, but all still standing after what must have been centuries of abandonment. And in the center of the platform, standing as if she had been waiting for exactly this moment, stood a woman. She was beautiful in a way that made Kael's breath catch, not the simple prettiness of village girls, but something otherworldly and strange. Her skin was pale as moonlight, her hair a cascade of silver that moved in a wind he couldn't feel. She wore a dress of midnight blue that seemed woven from shadows and starlight, constantly shifting at the edges of perception. But it was her eyes that truly arrested him, silver, like polished mirrors, reflecting his image back at him but also showing depths that went on forever. She smiled as he emerged from the mist, and the expression was warm, genuine, achingly familiar. "Hello, Kael," she said, her voice now clear and unfiltered. "I've been calling you for so long. I was beginning to fear you'd never hear me." He should have been terrified. Every legend, every warning, every story told around winter fires had prepared him for this. The beautiful woman in the cursed woods was always the monster, always the trap. But as he stood there, lantern raised, staring at her across the ruined platform, all he felt was a strange sense of recognition, as if he were remembering something he'd forgotten long ago. "Who are you?" His voice came out steady despite the thunder of his pulse. "I am called Lyris," she said, descending from the platform with movements that were too graceful, too fluid to be entirely human. "I am a guardian of the threshold, a keeper of the boundary between what is and what lies beyond. I am very, very old, and very, very tired, and I've been waiting for you." "Why?" Kael asked. "I'm nobody, just a farmer's son from Thornhaven." Lyris laughed, a sound like bells chiming in the distance. "Oh, Kael, you're so much more than that, though they've hidden it from you well. Tell me, do you know anything of your birth? Your true parentage? My parents are Marcus and Elena Thorne's son. They've raised me since." He paused, realization dawning. "They never said born. They always said raised." "Because you weren't born to them," Lyris said gently. "You were born somewhere else. Someone else. And you were brought to Thornhaven 17 years ago by people who wanted you to live a normal life, safe, and hidden from those who would seek to use you or destroy you." The world seemed to tilt beneath Kael's feet. "That's impossible." "Is it?" "Deep down, haven't you always known you were different? The mark on your shoulder, that's not a birthmark, Kael. It's a sigil, a symbol of your true heritage." She gestured, and the mist around them suddenly rose, forming shapes and images like a living tapestry. Kael watched in stunned silence as the mist showed him visions. A grand city of silver towers beneath twin moons. A battle fought between beings of light and shadow, their power shaking the foundations of reality. A woman, regal, powerful, with the same silver eyes as Lyris, holding an infant child as darkness consumed the city around her. The woman running through collapsing corridors, pursuers close behind, clutching the child desperately. A portal opening, swirling with colors that had no names, and the woman pushing the child through even as her pursuers reached her. The child falling, through layers of reality, until gentle hands caught him. Kael recognized those hands. His mother's hands. Elena, younger then but still with the same kind eyes, looking down at the infant that had appeared from nowhere in the middle of her kitchen 17 years ago, wrapped in cloth woven from starlight. "No," Kael whispered, but the denial was hollow. The visions felt true in a way that resonated in his bones. "Yes," Lyris said. "You are not of this realm, Kael. Not entirely. You are of the Silver City, born to the royal line of the Luminari, the beings of light who ruled the realm above this one. But your city fell. The Shadow King, an entity of pure darkness and hunger, waged war against your people. Your mother, Queen Aelindra, she was the last of the royal house. And you were the last hope. The mist visions showed more, the queen dying, her light fading as she held back her attackers long enough for the portal to close. The Shadow King, a figure of such concentrated darkness that looking at even the mist memory of him made Kael's eyes water, screaming in rage as his prize escaped. She sent you here, to this realm, where the barrier between worlds is strongest. She hoped you would be safe, that you could live in peace, that perhaps the Shadow King would never find you. Lyris's expression grew somber. But the barrier is failing. It has been failing for years, eroding like a stone worn down by water. The Shadow Realm presses against this world, seeking entrance. And the Shadow King, he has not forgotten. He knows there is one surviving heir to the power that once defeated him. He can feel you, Kael, like a beacon in the darkness. And he is coming. Kael's legs gave out, and he sat down hard on the damp ground, lantern forgotten beside him. His entire life, everything he knew about himself, had just been torn apart and rebuilt into something impossible. This can't be real. I'm just me. I have no power, no magic. I can barely manage to plow a straight furrow. Lyris knelt before him, her eyes impossibly gentle. Your power has been sleeping, locked away by your mother's last spell to keep you hidden. But the lock is breaking, Kael. You've felt it, haven't you? The dreams, the strange moments when time seems to slow, when you see things others can't, when shadows move at the corner of your vision. He had, God help him, he had, dreams of silver cities and dark wars. Moments when he'd turned and sworn he'd seen his own shadow moving independently. Times when he'd looked at the sunset and seen colors that vanished when he blinked. He'd thought he was going mad, had never told anyone, had tried to ignore it all and be normal. What do you want from me? He asked quietly. I don't want anything from you, Lyris said. I'm a messenger, nothing more. But there are others who need you. Your people, the scattered survivors of the Luminari who fled to this realm, and others. The kingdoms of this world that will fall when the Shadow King breaks through. The balance of all reality, which teeters on the edge of collapse. She stood, extending her hand. I'm offering you a choice, Kael. The same choice your mother gave you when she sent you through that portal. What choice? Return to Thornhaven. Go back to your life. The memories of this night will fade like a dream, and you'll wake tomorrow and plow your fields and marry a village girl and die in peaceful obscurity. The spell that binds your power will hold, perhaps long enough for you to live out a normal span of years. But when the Shadow King comes, and he will come, you will die with everyone else, never knowing what you might have been. She paused, her silver eyes reflecting the lantern light. Or come with me. Begin the journey your mother intended for you. Learn what you are. Claim the power that is your birthright. It will be dangerous, more dangerous than anything you can imagine. You will face horrors and wonders, will know pain and loss, will be tested in ways that will break you down to your foundations. Many who start this path do not finish it. But if you succeed, if you become what you were meant to be, you might just save everything. Kael looked up at her, this impossible being offering him an impossible choice. Behind her, the mist continued to swirl, showing fragmentary images, the Shadow King's armies gathering in the spaces between worlds, darkness spreading across realms like spilled ink, but also flashes of silver light, of power unleashed, of a figure standing against the darkness with hands full of starlight. The figure looked like him. If I go back, he said slowly, if I choose the safe path, will I remember any of this? No, Lyris said. The mercy of that choice is forgetting. And if I go with you, where do we go? What happens? We begin your training. There are places in this world where the old magic still flows strong, where the Luminari built sanctuaries before the fall. I will take you to the first, the Sanctum of Echoes, deep in the Thorpeak Mountains. There, you will meet others like you, others who carry the old blood. You will learn to unlock your power, to fight, to understand the nature of the realms and the shadow that threatens them. Kael thought of his parents, Marcus and Elena, who had raised him with love despite knowing he was not truly theirs. Would they mourn if he disappeared? Would they understand? Or would they wake tomorrow with no memory of a son they'd never had? The spell that hid him rewriting their lives as it erased his? He thought of Thornhaven, the only home he'd ever known. The familiar faces, the safe routines, the predictable future. He thought of the silver city in the visions, the mother he'd never known who had died to give him a chance at life. He thought of the mark on his shoulder, the dreams that had haunted him, the feeling that had followed him every day of his life, the unshakable certainty that he was meant for something more, even when he'd had no reason to believe it. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Kael rose to his feet, his legs steady now despite everything. He looked at Lyris, the strange guardian who had called him from his safe life into absolute uncertainty, and felt something kindle in his chest. Not fear, not anymore, but something brighter and fiercer. "When do we leave?" he asked. Lyris's smile was radiant. "Now, this very moment." The Whispering Woods exist partially outside normal time and space. It's why they're cursed, why they feel wrong to ordinary people. They're a threshold, a crossing point. From here, we can step to any of the old places, the sanctuaries your people built. She extended her hand again. "Take my hand, Kael Thorn's son. Or should I say, Prince Kael of the House Luminari? Your true life begins tonight." He reached out, his calloused farmer's hand grasping her pale, delicate fingers. Her skin was cool, like marble, but the grip was strong. The moment their hands connected, power surged through him like lightning through a rod. The mark on his shoulder flared with silver light, burning through his shirt, and Kael gasped as something inside him, something that had been locked and sleeping his entire life, suddenly cracked open. Light poured from the mark, from his eyes, from his very skin. The world around him suddenly blazed with colors he'd never seen, with layers of reality he'd never perceived. He could see the threads that wove through all things, the patterns of power that flowed through the earth and air and ancient trees. He could see Lyris truly now, not just the beautiful woman shape she wore, but the being beneath, ancient and vast and terrible and wonderful, a consciousness that had witnessed the birth and death of countless ages. And he could see the darkness, pressing at the edges of reality like a vast ocean held back by a crumbling dam. Hungry, patient, inevitable, the vision was too much, too vast for his mortal mind to contain. Kael felt himself falling, consciousness fragmenting under the weight of perception his brain wasn't ready to process. Lyris caught him, and with a gesture, dimmed the power flowing through him. The extra perceptions faded, though Kael knew they weren't gone, just dampened, waiting for him to grow strong enough to bear them. "Easy," she murmured. "You've taken the first step. The seal is broken. But power without control is just destruction. You have much to learn." Kael nodded weakly, leaning on her for support as his body adjusted to the change. He felt different, not stronger yet, but more aware, as if he'd been living his entire life slightly out of focus and someone had suddenly sharpened the image. "The sanctum," he managed. "Take me there." Lyris raised her free hand, and the mist rose in response, spinning faster, forming a whirlpool of silver light in the air before them. Through it, Kael could see another place, a vast hall carved from crystal, lit by floating orbs of starlight, with figures moving in the distance. "Through there," Lyris said. "And Kael, there's no going back after this. The moment we step through, the spell that protected you will fully dissolve. The Shadow King will know you live. You will be hunted." "Good," Kael said, surprised by the steel in his own voice. "I have questions for him too." Lyris laughed, delighted. "Oh, you are your mother's son. She would be proud." She squeezed his hand. "Come then, Prince of Light. Your kingdom may have fallen, but in you it rises again. Let's see if you have the strength to reclaim what was lost." Together, they stepped into the swirling portal, the Whispering Woods, the ruined circle of stones. The life Kael had known, all of it fell away like a discarded coat. For a moment, he existed in the space between spaces, neither here nor there, suspended in silver infinity. Then new ground solidified beneath his feet, new air filled his lungs, and Kael opened his eyes to a world he'd never imagined but somehow remembered. The sanctum of echoes spread before him in impossible grandeur, soaring columns of crystal, floors that reflected starlight despite being deep underground, and dozens of figures turning to look at the newcomers. They were like him, Kael realized, young men and women bearing marks similar to his own, glowing faintly with inner light. The scattered children of the Luminari, gathered in secret, training for a war most of the world didn't know was coming. An older man approached, his beard shot with silver, his eyes kind but sharp. "Lyris," he said, "I see you finally succeeded in calling the lost prince. We'd almost given up hope." "Master Aldrich." Lyris inclined her head respectfully. "May I present Prince Kael, last son of Queen Aelindra, heir to the silver throne, bearer of the Seal of Dawn." She turned to Kael. "And this is Aldrich Stormweaver, High Master of the Sanctum, Teacher of the old ways, and the one who will make you into what you need to be, assuming you survive his training. Eldrick smiled grimly. Most don't, but then, most aren't the key to saving reality. He looked Kael up and down, assessing. You're scrawny, too soft from farm life. No muscle tone, no combat training, no magical discipline. We have 6 months before the Shadow King's forces are strong enough to breach the barrier. 6 months to turn you from a farmer into a weapon. You'll die trying. He clapped Kael on the shoulder, the gesture somehow both welcoming and ominous. Welcome to the sanctum of echoes, boy. Welcome to the war that's been waiting for you since before you were born. Rest tonight, you'll need it. Training begins at dawn, and I promise you, by the end of the first day, you'll wish you'd stayed in Thornhaven plowing fields. As Aldrich walked away, shouting orders to the other students, Kael turned to Lyris. Thank you, he said quietly, for calling me, for showing me the truth. She smiled sadly. Don't thank me yet. The path ahead is darker than you know. You'll curse my name more than once before this is over. She touched his face gently, the gesture almost motherly. But I believe in you, Prince Kael. I served your mother, watched you as an infant before she sent you away. I've waited 17 years for this moment. Don't make me regret my faith. I must return to the threshold. My duty is to call, to guide, to guard the crossing. But we'll meet again when the final battle comes. Until then, learn well. Grow strong. Wait. Kael called, but she was already gone, dispersed into silver smoke that faded on a wind that came from nowhere. He stood alone in the center of the vast hall, surrounded by strangers who would become comrades, about to begin a journey he couldn't possibly understand. Fear warred with exhilaration in his chest. Everything he'd known was gone. Everything ahead was uncertainty and danger. But for the first time in his life, Kael felt awake. Truly, completely awake. The mark on his shoulder pulsed with silver light, warm against his skin. Somewhere in the darkness between realms, the Shadow King stirred, sensing the rekindling of an ancient power he'd thought extinguished. The hunt had begun, but so had the resistance. Kael Thorn's son, Farmer's son, was dead. Prince Kael of House Luminari, heir to the Silver Throne, last hope of a fallen realm, was born. And in the Whispering Woods, where a young man had answered a voice that called from the darkness, the ancient trees swayed in a wind that spoke of change. The first piece had moved on a board that spanned realms and ages. The game between light and shadow, long thought finished, had begun anew. The shadowed kingdom was awakening, and the world would never be the same.